Welcome again to the webinar. We're so excited to have you all in attendance. Just want to do a few housekeeping rules before Jean gets started with the presentation. As you can see, you have a question box and a chat box. Please use those to ask questions throughout the presentation. We would encourage you to, feel free to express any questions. We definitely want this to be an open conversation, but there are so many of you, we can't actually unmute you all. So we appreciate you being able to use those resources. And do we just want to get started then?
Yeah, I guess so. I would just add to that in terms of questions, please don't hesitate to ask them. We'd much rather have you ask questions now than to do a complete application and find out that you had done it completely wrong because you had a question that you didn't think to ask us. All right, so my name is Jean Beal. I'm the Senior Vice President for Programs and Services here at Catholic Charities USA, and I have with me Sarah Hendley, whose lovely voice you just heard. Sarah is the manager for CNCS programs here at Catholic Charities USA, and CNCS means the Corporation for National and Community Service, which is the organization that gives us AmeriCorps members, and this won't go. As you can see, we're just a little confused today. All right, so the Corporation for National and Community Service is the federal government organization that provides AmeriCorps members. Catholic Charities USA already has 2 AmeriCorps programs, one in its 3rd year called AmeriCorps Peer Navigators, which works with veterans and military families, and the second one, which just started this past August, is for refugee resettlement. So we are hoping that with our positive track record at the Corporation for National and Community Service, where we also have a VISTA program, we will be able to convince them that we are ready and able to have another AmeriCorps program, this one for legal immigration services. So just a little bit about the Corporation for National and Community Service. They want our country to be better. They want our citizens to be involved, especially through volunteering. So they're looking to provide opportunities for all Americans to help make this a better country. Their goals to sort of advance national service as a way to solve problems, to expand opportunities for all Americans, build capacity of individuals and communities to solve their own problems through service and volunteering, and then they love embracing innovative solutions and having evidence-based solutions, doing things that are already proven to work well. They're really very happy to do that. So what's an AmeriCorps member? These are individuals, usually, but not always, usually young people who are taking a gap year between college and the rest of their lives, maybe because they are very much interested in the National Education Award that's going to help them pay off their debts, or maybe they just have a good heart and want to do something for the country, but aren't really interested in military service. So this is a way for them to give back. So they want to do direct community service. You may have known, or you may have worked with VISTAs. VISTAs only do capacity building. They're AmeriCorps VISTAs. These are just AmeriCorps members, and they do direct service. However, they can't replace an employee or a volunteer, and we know that most of you have way more clients than you can handle in any one week, so we're not really too concerned that they're going to take over the place of an employee, but rather augment your service delivery. AmeriCorps members receive a living allowance and other benefits, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. They can serve up to 4 years, but they can only get 2 education awards. So it's unusual for AmeriCorps members to serve more than 2 years. However, they often will become your employees because they sort of have like a year-long or a 2-year-long kind of interview and work-study process through you, so you know them and you generally trust them, and they often become great employees for us. They have to be at least 17, and we can, as we're talking about who we want for this program, we can say that they have to be, over 21, or they have to be college graduates. We can determine the sort of folks that we're looking for. They have to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident alien. So documented members are not good for AmeriCorps programs. They might maybe for VISTA, but not for this one. So that either a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. At the start of their service, they undergo a background check, and at the end of their service, if they've completed appropriately and positively, they receive an education award. But no more than 2, as I've already said. And for members over the age of 55, and sometimes we do get, sort of volunteer retired folks who want to do something else now that their first career has ended. For those folks, the education award is transferable to a child or a grandchild, but that member has to be over 55. The Education Award is $5,815, and it's provided by the National Service Trust. So that doesn't come from Catholic Charities, from your program at all. It comes right from the federal government and is part of the appropriation CNCS gets from Congress. They can use that to repay student loans, to pay future education, or anything in a school-to-work program. Usually younger folks that might be true for. And while they're being in AmeriCorps, their debt can be, what do you call that?
Put into forbearance.
Yeah, forbearance. Their student loan sort of goes on hiatus until they get out of service. They also get a living allowance. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. Healthcare coverage, if they don't come to you with healthcare coverage, and child care, and the child care is paid for again by the federal government. Additionally, they get a shirt and maybe other gear. Reasonable accommodation, that means that if the person who's applying for you, the person that seems right for your program has a disability, which is something that we would always encourage, that you provide them with reasonable accommodation to get the job done, just as if they were an employee. They get training, and we're hoping that that anyone who applies for this program would also be able to get BIA accredited during the course of their year. Why we're kind of sticking that in, it's unusual, but why we're sticking that in is that one of the main goals of CNCS is that the AmeriCorps member, or the VISTA member for that matter, when they leave, they should be ready to start their career. And having a BIA accreditation would be an amazing asset to provide to the member in exchange for their service.
Looks like we already have a question, if we want to pull up that box.
What box am I pulling? The one with the question mark in it. For legal services, does this include direct services providing legal services? To the extent that they have the accreditation necessary to do that. So we're not necessarily saying that you will be recruiting lawyers or persons already BIA accredited, but if they can get accredited in the course of the time, then they can be providing legal services. They could also be providing screening in advance of real legal services. What about refugees? Can they participate? Yes, they can participate if they have their permanent legal resident status. So yes. Okay, back to the regular presentation. Please feel free with the questions. Okay, I think that's enough for that page. And it is not moving again. Here we go. All right, so grant recipients. You would be a sub-grantee should we win this grant. the funding is distributed by CNCS for AmeriCorps programs either to governor-appointed state commissions throughout the country or to national intermediaries. So it's possible for you to get AmeriCorps members by applying to your state commission, or if Catholic Charities USA applies and then is awarded this national grant, you could get your AmeriCorps members through us, and then you would be sub-grantees of ours. Your responsibility then would be to recruit, train, and manage those AmeriCorps members, and we will, if you're a sub-grantee of ours, help you do that as much as we can. If you have a question about whether or not what you're looking for is someone who would be coming through the CCUSA grants, you can send me an email and I will help you figure that out. If you have a project that doesn't exactly fit in legal immigration services, kind of general topic, but in some ways also specific. If you have a project that doesn't exactly fit what we're talking about here today, you can apply for AmeriCorps through your state service commission, and this is a live link that should get you close to the state service commissions, and we will send out this PowerPoint at the end to anyone who requests it. Whoa, lots of questions now. Okay, so we're going to take a stop here to answer some questions. Is there funding for the BIA trainings? Not from us. Are you aware that BIA accreditation does not travel with the individual and is only good at the office where they are working at the time? They might want to continue working with you after they have the accreditation. And even if they can't take it with them, they're going to be pretty prepared for a good job in this field. I take it that DACA is a no. Yes, documented individuals are not able to be AmeriCorps members. They can be VISTA members. So if you're talking to young people who have gone through the DACA process, who want a service opportunity, they should apply for VISTA. And as I said, Catholic Charities USA has a VISTA program. Reminder that BIA accreditation is for individuals discontinued once a staff member leaves the organization. BIA permits a person to practice administrative law without a license. When no longer associated with the nonprofit that supported their application, they no longer have the BIA certification and must reapply with another sponsor institution. All right, we got that. Everybody knew that, but probably me, although I did know it in some part of my brain. When may you know if CCUSA is approved? Okay, we're going to get to that at the end. Please send a copy. I'll tell you what to do later on. We're not finished. If you're wanting to start a legal immigration service program, could we use the AmeriCorps person for planning and developing the program? It sounds more like you need a VISTA because that's capacity building. The AmeriCorps program is to do actual work with, in this case, immigrants. Okay. One more. The amount of the stipend is not much. There are additional funds available from CCUSA. No, and let me continue with my presentation so that you get the answers to some of these questions before you have to ask them. All right, moving on. This is a pain in my neck. It's not even there now. All right. So what are the key principles for the agencies? So what's going to happen is we have to write an application here, right? So hoping that we will have enough agencies interested to meet the 20-member threshold, we do not need to write an application. And since we don't know about all the situations around the country, we're going to need your help to document your local need, to cooperate with the state entity. We're going to need you to recruit the AmeriCorps members and then use those members for service, provide ongoing program supervision and financial support to them, and engage local volunteers in the effort and then develop a sustainability plan, because nothing the federal government ever wants to end anything that they start. So they want you to continue on doing it. So what's the award? Both funding and members. I mean, the real award here is that you get a person who comes in and works 1,700 hours in the course of a year, right? But we also give you some funds to pay that person's living allowance. The funds are provided by the Corporation for National and Community Service to us 1 year at a time, contingent on performance and compliance and the availability of funds. They have to go to Congress every year to ask for an appropriation. So when we get the grant of the money that they give us, which is never a large grant, CCUSA will pass through up to $8,630 per member as a reimbursement. The living allowance is $12,630. That means you're responsible for $4,000 of the living allowance. And how this works is that you, in 2-week increments generally, although you could do it monthly, it's easier for the member if you do it every 2 weeks, you provide them with $12,630 minus taxes divided by 24, so that every 2 weeks you give them a small amount of money that they're supposed to use as their living allowance. When you get to the end of your grant, that's when your responsibility to pay the rest kicks in. Every quarter, you send us a financial report, and we reimburse you for the amount of living allowance you paid out that quarter until the grant amount of $8,630 per member is used up. And then the agency provides any additional resources needed to operate the program. So you give them a desk and a phone and pens. And if for some reason you send them out to travel, you reimburse them if they're using their own vehicle. What else did we say?
Also provide orientation to your program, provide site supervision is a big part of what your agency will provide to the program.
Right. So also, we say it's your responsibility to provide health insurance if the member comes to you without any. So the question always comes up, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to afford to pay health insurance. How many members actually need health insurance? So this is a survey we did a few years ago of agencies that had used AmeriCorps members. A small number of members, so about 15–18% were covered on their parents' insurance. It's probably even more now because of the Affordable Care Act. The member may be covered by his or her own health insurance, or you may pay the member for their health insurance to help them buy their health insurance. And since their living allowance is so small, almost everyone qualifies for the ACA, for Obamacare on the exchange, and gets supplemental assistance from the federal government for health insurance. So we do not believe that the health insurance piece of this is a huge burden for the agency. However, it is your responsibility to help them get health insurance if they come to you without it.
Looks like we have one question.
All right, we're going to stop and take another question. Who pays for health insurance, FICA, and other benefits? So yeah, we're getting to that. FICA, yes, you need to do that. And also unemployment insurance, if your state requires it, and workman's comp. So that all comes from you all. But you have to consider, as you're thinking about, this is all adding up, right, in your head, you have to consider you're getting a full-time, energetic employee that really has a good heart and wants to do something for immigrants. We just started this year, as I said before, a refugee resettlement program. We were more than amazed with the quality of the young people who came for the training, who are now serving as AmeriCorps members in 15 agencies across the country. Just wonderful young people with great hearts and great educations, and just bringing a lot of energy and enthusiasm to the work. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Sarah.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think specifically this issue in refugee immigration and refugee services is such a very timely issue. And it's something that a lot of young people are really interested and want to be a part of. And also at the end, I served as an AmeriCorps Vista. So if there's any questions about, will you be able to recruit a candidate with such a low living allowance, it's definitely worth it. And I can speak to that experience in general if there's ever that side of questions.
In fact, there are hundreds of young people trying to become AmeriCorps, knowing what the living allowance and the education award are, who can't find positions because there aren't enough funded positions in the country. So I don't know that that's going to be too much of an issue. But anyway, all right, so what does CCUSA do with the rest of the grant money? We pay for the salary of a national office program person and the finance staff time. We provide the initial orientation, which means that we fly in from wherever in the country the member, and actually we'll also fly in a supervisor at two separate times usually. But we'll fly you in for a couple of days of training here, put you up, feed you, provide you with all the supplies that you need. We also do program monitoring site visits, which are required by CNCS to make sure that the money is being used appropriately and that the members are getting the appropriate supervision and member development. And then we develop an evaluation of the whole program. So that's what we will be using the funding for. So what does the application require? And we're going to take a look at it in a few minutes when I finish this PowerPoint so that all your questions about the application will also be completed. So we're going to ask you some questions about the need in your area, how you're going to use the AmeriCorps member to overcome that need, where you're going to be serving, how you're going to supervise, really the training, any additional training will also be included, how you're going to generate volunteers. As I said at the beginning, one of the goals of CNCS is that not only the people in the service year will have an opportunity to volunteer, but they're also required to pull other volunteers in, which can't be a bad thing for your programs. Any partnerships and collaboration, and we will make an assessment on your capacity to manage a federal grant. So we have a financial self-assessment study that we send out with the application that we need returned to us so that we can say, oh, this agency can really do this, and we know you're all not complicated agencies, sophisticated agencies that can manage this. It's not a lot of money anyway. Okay, so this is the bottom line, but we're going to look at the application in a second. We probably could maybe just go to the application, you think, and then answer questions? Maybe answer questions about this. If anyone else has questions about anything else I've said so far, let's see them now. This is fabulous.
We like that reaction.
That's the kind of question I love. Thank you for this info. Will you be able to send out the slides? Yes, we will do that. What we're going to ask you to do is, if you're interested, we're going to ask you to send an email to Fanny Cruz, who has left for the day, so she won't respond today. And Fanny's going to send you the sub-application kit, the PowerPoint presentation, the self-assessment. What does direct service mean? If we have a pro bono program and they will provide support to the coordinator helping to match cases, will that count as direct service? We're looking at each other trying to think that, whether or not that is more. I think that's direct service, because what happens is capacity building is something that you leave behind and it's still there. But the matching will have to happen day by day.
Case management almost. So
yeah.
I think that would be appropriate in this case.
That'll work. Helping the coordinator to match cases will count as direct service.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the end of those questions. Let's take a look at the application, because I think you may have more questions about that. So end this and pull this up. All right. Those of you who may have applied for a sub-grant with Catholic Charities USA, either for the VISTA or the refugee resettlement or something else in the past, are probably familiar with our process, our current process. It might change, but right now this is what we're using. So we have a Excel workbook. Workbook means that it has 3 pages. Please see the tabs at the bottom of the page here, right? On this first page, you just need to fill out the information going across, the legal name of your agency, and that doesn't mean the legal name of your program, because we're assuming your program is embedded in some Catholic Charities agency, right? So the name of the agency, where that main office for that agency is, not your office, but the main office, street address, the name of the executive director of the agency for which your program is a part, and now we get to the street address of the proposed service location. So where is the AmeriCorps member going to be? That goes in this box, city, state, and zip for that place. The name of the program contact for this grant. So the person that we need to write back to or call if we have questions about the application. The phone number, then your finance person. I'm going to move this over here. Finance person and their email address and phone number. Your agency DUNS number, which your finance person should be able to give you. Your agency EIN number, which your finance person should be able to give you. And then finally here, the number of full-time AmeriCorps members being requested. Now, let me tell you something. Usually, the first time you ask for a grant, you must ask for at least 20 and no more than 50 members. But I just talked to our program officer, and he said what you should do, because we already have a grant and we have sort of a track record with CNCS, is ask for what you need and be happy with what you get. So what that means in terms of this program is, if you want more than one AmeriCorps member, please feel free to ask. If we get 70 requests, we will ask for 70 requests, and then if they only give us 50, then we're going to have to figure out a way to figure out who gets those 50 members. But for the time being, we're going to go with ask for what you need, and then we'll figure out how to be happy with what we get. All right, so that's the first page. The second page is a bunch of questions, which you type the answers in these yellow boxes, right? So describe the local scope, not the national scope of the legal immigration program. So, you know, like how many immigrants are there in your area, in the area that you cover? Even if they're not coming to your program, how many immigrants potentially could be coming to your program? And then how many do you see in a year? How many do you turn away because you don't have capacity? Those are the kinds of things, information that's important to tell us. And if you're using data from a public source, please put that source there, you know, like you got this from the American Community Survey or something. What would your member be doing to enhance your program? If you're aware, this is an important piece, and I'm hoping that Clinic is going to help with this, Michelle, but if you're aware of any research that shows how providing legal immigration services improves the lives of the service recipients and of the community, that would be really helpful, because what we have to show is that we're using an evidence-based program here, and it's going to make a difference. So any information you have, any links you can provide, if you want to attach a study that you have and that you use when you write your own grants, that would be really helpful for us, because we need to provide some evidence that this really makes a difference. We're going to provide some training, but in this box we want you to talk about what additional orientation and training you can provide to the AmeriCorps members. Again, we want to prove to CNCS that the members are going to have a really worthwhile experience, and they're going to come away stronger than they came. Then talk about your supervision. Who would supervise that person? How often? Generally what happens is you're supervising, you know, almost daily at the beginning, and then once a week, and then that can slow down. But one person at least has to be the person to supervise, and that person is going to be like our contact, so that we'll be able to make sure that the member is doing well in your program. Then we want to talk a little bit about how your program is going to recruit volunteers. And there's two kinds of volunteers that we talk about later on, further down here. Episodic volunteers. Those are, like you have a day in, I'm making this up, you have a day in April where you have a special Welcome to All Immigrants Day or something. And you then recruit 50 volunteers to help with that. That's an episodic volunteer. Or you might be recruiting volunteers who regularly do ESL classes or who regularly do citizenship classes. Those people who work more regularly, they're the ongoing volunteers, and your AmeriCorps member may be helping to recruit them as well. So then we want you to take some guesses on how many will be generated by this member. And just don't worry about it, just guess, because we have to put targets into our performance measures that we think we might be able to report on later. And then going back to my questions here, the AmeriCorps grant pays only a portion of the cost. How will you get the rest? We want you to think about that, because at some point you will have to make up the shortfall. Okay, we asked the volunteer questions. Then this one is, again, this is sort of a guess, best guess based on what you usually see in your program. How many unduplicated individuals, now it looks like we have an extra word in there, how many unduplicated individuals will be served by the AmeriCorps member? And then would you be willing or able to help your member become BIA accredited based on everything we just talked about the fact that they can't take it with them and they'll have to reapply and all of that? Can they at least get the training, I guess is the question.
Maybe we should take a few questions on this page.
Take some questions on this page. Okay. Let's go up here. Okay, what's the role of the State Commission? So the State Commission in every state also gets AmeriCorps members, and they sort of subgrant them to nonprofit agencies throughout the state that are doing whatever kind of work they're doing, and that apply to the State Commission for those AmeriCorps members. So they're just another way to get AmeriCorps members, but they might have their own priorities on the kinds of members that they would like to send out. The reason why you need to be connected to the State Commission is because they need to be aware of what AmeriCorps members are in their state, whether they've placed them there or someone else has. So they try to sort of draw a map of their state and say, okay, here we have all of the members that we put out that, applied to us, and then there's some Catholic Charities members here, and there's some United Way members there, and there's some Feeding America members here, so that they have sort of a real clear picture on the federal assets that are in their state. Can AmeriCorps work on any type of immigration case, or is there a specific type that members should be working on? Yeah, I don't think CNCS would not determine that. That would be best determined by you all. Would this AmeriCorps member be able to help us with recruiting volunteer attorneys in our community from our for-profit law firms, or is this not considered direct service? All right, so if you had a VISTA, that could be their full-time job. If you have an AmeriCorps and they're also doing direct service, they could certainly do this as part of their job. All right, so every AmeriCorps member does direct service, but they also are responsible for recruiting volunteers. So they certainly could recruit pro bono attorneys as part of their job. Yeah, those would be ongoing volunteers, and we would like you to count them then as ongoing volunteers. Are there word or character limits? In these boxes, there are not, but don't put a lot of words in there. If we get 50 applications from you all, and they all have 250 words in every box, we're not even going to be able to read them. So just get to the point really quickly. If you got a link, put that link in. Make it short and sweet, but make it have some content as well. But don't make it long, because it's too much for us to handle then. Just imagine us taking 50 applications and making one application out of them. It should give you some sense of what that's like. Can this person, after completing the basic immigration training, work independently or only in an established office with other staff? So if they're BIA accredited, I think there are some agencies that start out their program with a BIA accredited person and no lawyers. I mean, maybe somebody could write that in the chat box. I'm not into legal immigration myself, but I think that that's true. I believe when I worked at Catholic Charities Metuchen that our immigration service was run by one guy who was BIA accredited, and he wasn't a lawyer. So yeah, I think that's possible.
But just to give a little more background, these AmeriCorps members do not have to be supervised by staff every day. They can work independently once they pass their criminal history background check.
Okay. But, if they're doing basic immigration work and they're not coming as a lawyer or someone already ready for accreditation, they probably need some supervision related to the immigration part of the work.
Correct.
So it sounds to me this is more of a bigger immigration program. We only have 2 employees and 1 intern. Now, you could get an AmeriCorps member. If you have an intern, your AmeriCorps member could be doing what your intern's doing, or even doing what your employees are doing, if what they're doing is not something that requires starting with lobbying. We have a lot of things AmeriCorps can't do, but we don't have that in this presentation. But we'll learn that later. So yeah, I don't think you have to have a big program. I think you can use AmeriCorps members to augment your small staff.
Yeah, and I think that's been the case with our AmeriCorps Refugee Resettlement Program as well. We've had huge agencies that have an AmeriCorps member, or a few. And there's also very small new agencies who have just started doing resettlement, and they only have maybe 3 staff members, and this person is really being able to increase the capacity of the organization to be able to work through all those cases.
Right. If we get an AmeriCorps member and at some point within the 3-year period no longer need the position, can we opt out? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We will open, for new members every year. And similarly, you can always ask us if you've started with a member and it's working out great, you could always ask us, can I get another member? And if we have an open slot, we'll be able to give you another member. Goes either way. I can see using the member in a couple of different ways. DACA and refugee adjustments. Would one be more appealing to CTUSA for the grant than the other? No. We're just going to, I think we're going to use as our idea here that legal immigration services, we know that you are all different. That's part of the value of getting subgrantees, of getting subgrants from Catholic Charities USA. We understand that you all do things differently. Even if you're doing the same thing, you're doing it differently. And we don't require you to do things the way we want you to do them, especially in this case, because we don't know what legal immigration is about, really. So, yeah, I know you do what you do. We'll just make sure that it fits within the parameters of what an AmeriCorps member can do. In our office, we provide comprehensive immigration services. The new staff typically take a year to become BIA accredited. So also, BIA requires a comprehensive immigration course to be included as part of the application portfolio to become certified. This course in general is about $500 online. Yes, that's true. Yes, it's true. Whatever it was true. Don't have to have an attorney, but BIA have to work on site at the recognized office. This is information for the rest of you all. If your sub-office is BIA recognized as a BIA accredited rep, the person can be placed at those sub-offices. That's Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. Yes, our immigration program has 2 BIA accredited staff who are not lawyers. We do not have lawyers on staff. We have a non-BIA accredited director. We have staff who are BIA accredited. We have an attorney as a consultant for training and oversight. We have a total of 6 staff. Looks like a great place to put a couple of AmeriCorps. Can we apply for a VISTA under this application? No, but you should send me an email anyway, because we have 30 VISTAs for new Americans, and most of them are spoken for, but from time to time an agency will give their slot up, and then I can offer you a VISTA. So when we get to the end, see my email address. That might be helpful. With immigration legal services, there's a long learning curve. Is there any way to solidify a 2-year commitment for AmeriCorps members instead of 1? No.
You can ask your member if they would be interested, but there's no legal binding way. But you can always ask that in the interview if you'd like.
Can we request language specific? Yes, you can.
It's been really great with the refugee resettlement program, the variety of languages that our AmeriCorps speak, especially since a few of them are refugees themselves. So they've really been able to add to the programs that they're working in.
Any idea how likely it is that AmeriCorps members will be bilingual?
You can just choose someone who's bilingual, so 100%.
All right, so I'm going to close the question box for now so that we can look at the budget. Now here's the thing about the budget for a CNCS program. And again, some of you may know this. They don't give us a lot of money, but there is a match, and anything that we put in as match is subject to audit the same way as the federal money that you spend. So my advice is always put in enough to make it show like you're supporting the position, you're supporting the member, but don't put in any more than that, even if you're going to end up spending it, because it's going to be subject to audit when the time comes for a major audit. So what does that mean? Practically speaking, you want to put in part-time supervisor. So you put the position title in, whatever it is. You put a 1 here, that's 1 person, their annual salary and percent of time. And we usually say somewhere between 5 to 10% of a supervisor's time will be utilized supervising the AmeriCorps in the course of the year. So don't put in more than that. Okay. The next section, this health insurance and all this stuff, this is your employee, your supervisor. So you put in whatever is your agency calculation. So health insurance is 15% of the salary. So you put in 15% times whatever. You just actually put in the percentages here, and then it should calculate out the amounts. And that would be for the 10% of the time that they're using. So again, this is just you saying that we're supporting our member because we have a supervisor and we're paying that supervisor. Staff travel. I wouldn't put anything in here because if your staff is traveling, they're probably not traveling because of the AmeriCorps member. And if they're traveling here for training, we're going to pay for it. So don't put anything there. Member local travel. If your member, your AmeriCorps member that you're proposing, will have to travel from parish to parish or from one office to another, and they're going to be required to use their own vehicle, then you're going to have to calculate some mileage for the year and then working on using the IRS usual amount for mileage, figure out how much the budget would be. That's going to be cash that's going to come from your agency to pay for that mileage if they have to travel. You will not be paying for their travel from wherever it is they end up living to your office, just for travel in the course of the day if it's required for the job. I don't think you're going to need contractual services unless maybe an interpreter or something if your member will only speak English and needs to work with immigrants who have a different language. But again, all of these expenses are related directly to what you need for that member. not all the interpretation services you need in your office, but only those you would anticipate needing for your member. Supplies, again, you can put some money in here, but I mean, who buys extra special pens for their AmeriCorps member? No, they're just going to get what your staff has. Unless you have to order another laptop or something because you're going to have a member in the office, then you could put that in there. Member training. All right, so we said that they're coming here. We'll pay for that. That'll be in our part of the budget. But if they are going to have any other training, like say that $500 for the BIA accreditation, you would put that in here. Other program costs, both the member and the member's supervisor will need to undergo criminal background checks. And I know you probably all have had criminal background checks. They're not good enough. So CNCS will require that the supervisor has to go through their own background checks. So what we're asking is that you put in for the number of members that you're asking for and the number of supervisors, $50, we think covers it per person. So you want to put that in for sure. And then any other program operating costs related specifically to the member, you would put there. The living allowance, so it's already in there, right? So $12,630, you put the number of members you're going to ask for, it'll multiply out. Wherever you see a zero, that means there's a formula in that box. See up here, there's a formula. Don't write in those boxes, just let the formula calculate itself. All right, so that's the member's living allowance, and then the health insurance. Like we said before, it's very likely the person will come to you with health insurance. If not, then they're going to get their health insurance on the exchange. So we're saying that at most it's going to cost your agency around $1,200 to help that person get health insurance. Workman's comp, you want to get these from your finance department. Whether you have an unemployment insurance, what the FICA is going to be, all of that is going to come from here. And this is an important thing to remember, and if we get the grant and you come in for training, we will beat you over the head with it, but these are not employees, right? These are members, but they do get an income, which is not a wage, it's just a living allowance, and the fact that they have an income means that they have to have income tax. So you're going to have to take tax out of the living allowance, but that's part of what it means to do this. All right, administrative and indirect costs. So again, you're not actually going to be getting this money for these indirect costs from CNCS, but we put it in because this is part of your match. So if you have a federally approved rate, you use that rate to calculate it. If you don't, then just use 10%. That's what the federal government now allows any grantees to use as their approved rate.
Also, it cannot exceed 10% either. So if your rate is over that.
It can. Finance says it can't?
Yeah.
No, it can because it's the match. Yeah, we'll talk to our finance department. It's not that the federal government won't give you more than 10%, but they're not going to give anybody this money anyway, right? And then we want you to talk about the revenue. So from Catholic Charities USA, we told you from the grant you'll get $8,630 per member, so that would go there. And then because our goal is for you to balance to zero, you're going to have to tell us the rest of the money is in kind, or it's an agency cash source, or it's federal funds, which is not likely for an immigration program. We could probably take this whole thing out here. You're not going to have federal funds. So we want you to figure out where the revenue is going to come from so that the balance down here comes to zero. And there's a number in here already because of the FICA, I think. Well, we'll fix that. I don't know where it came from. Oh, there it is, see? It's the FICA. Yeah. All right, anyway. So that's the budget. Any questions about the budget? All right, we're going to go up this way. Can the revenue be used to match? No, I better not do that because then we'll miss something at the bottom. Let's go to the last question. Bilingual, who pays for the background clearance process? You do. You pay for the background clearance process. Like I said, $50 per member should cover it, and $50 per supervisor. We have a process that, should we get the grants, we will explain to you how it all happens. But yeah, you do. Our agency charges nominal fees. Is there any problem with the member providing services where the program generates revenue from the fees? We don't think so, but we'll check on that. Yeah. We sponsored a Justice AmeriCorps member. For them, we had to pay both the employer and the employee's costs for the health care. Is it the same for the AmeriCorps member? Well, the AmeriCorps member doesn't have a lot of money, but we're not anticipating that you're going to pay health care the way you do for your employees, where they pay a piece of it and you pay a piece of it, and the whole thing costs, I don't know, $4,000. So what we're talking about is helping the member, so giving the member the money they need to buy health insurance on the state exchange or the federal exchange. So I don't think that question, we're kind of like looking at each other. We haven't had that question before, but the Justice AmeriCorps members, I think, were a different class of AmeriCorps. They got higher money. And
right. Yeah, every AmeriCorps is very different with its legislation and requirements. So for this one, you just have to help pay for the health care.
Yeah. Can the revenue be used to revenue we use to match fees to clients served by this AmeriCorps member? Yeah, we're going to check on that. If the program is receiving federal funds, can that be listed under revenue budget? If it's going to pay for the supervisor's time, I mean, that would be the only thing you probably would use it for. The answer is yes, if you get the permission of the funding organization. Okay? So that's generally the rule. You can use federal funds as a match if that other federal organization gives you permission to do that. And that means having an email from them saying that they understand that you're going to use it as a match for an AmeriCorps program, and they agree. We require to include BIA accreditation for the member in our application. I think that we are going to have a much stronger application if we say that across the board that is going to be offered to the member. So it's sort of a round-the-back answer to your question. And maybe if you don't, and it comes time for us to figure out who gets the member, then you may be less likely to get the member. We may use that as criteria for figuring out who will get them. The instruction how to complete the budget will be provided in writing. No. It's pretty, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But if in the course of filling it out, your finance department has problems, then we will make sure that someone can answer them. So, it's just we're just a phone call away. If you wouldn't be able to apply this year, would it be an opportunity next year? I would rather have you apply this year and then find out in May or June that, yeah, in fact, we can do it, than to not apply this year and then wish that you had. Because we don't know. One, we don't know we're going to get it. No, two, we don't know that we're going to get more than 50. So I don't know if that's a satisfactory answer. And Rachel, you're always welcome to, send me an email privately. We don't. Once you have a program, you're supposed to have that program for 3 years. And here's the thing. We have, as I said before, a refugee resettlement program. We're going to write a new grant asking for an expansion of that program this year because we think there are more agencies that want it. that's, I think, pretty unusual that people do that. So we may not get that expansion, and we may not get an expansion of this one either. So I think the better bet is to go in for as many as we can, and then if we have to sell them after the fact, we'll do that.
Right. This all depends on federal government funding. That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah. Please don't forget to give us a timeline. Are we looking at FY18? We'll give you the timelines, the last couple of pages from the PowerPoint. When will this program start? What is your phone number? What do you mean for source of agency cash contribution? So, I mean, if your agency, I know in Catholic Charities, Diocese of Metuchen, our immigration program was provided by fees and by a contribution from the diocese. So the cash contribution came from diocesan collections or private donations or something like that. Whatever is the source of money that you use to augment your fees, because I know none of you make it just based on your fees, that would be where your cash is coming from. Please consider the fact that it takes our organization 6 to 8 months to get someone BIA accredited. Then they start filing applications for clients. Many applications take 6 to 8 months or more to process. Requiring BIA accreditation could put us in a position where the person leaves and we have to try to substitute the representative on dozens of cases. Something for you to consider. You know, I don't know, we can have a fuller conversation. Let's have a conversation with clinic to see if this makes sense, or if it doesn't make sense, then we'll pull it out. But again, I think our application will be much stronger if we're offering that. And if we change our mind on that, we'll let everybody know who's applying.
Right, we can email everyone at the webinar, attending the webinar.
All right, so let me go back to my PowerPoint presentation to finish up.
So the sub-application kit was that application that Jean just showed, and also the self-assessment survey.
Right, the self-assessment survey is a fillable PDF that you will give to your finance department. If you have already filled it out for some other Catholic Charities grants, your finance department will know that, and they can just send us their most recent copy. Mm-hmm. All right, so the kits are going to go to Fanny Cruz. We are going to ask you to consult with your state commission if you're applying with us. What does that mean? That means that you have to send an email to somebody at your state commission, and again, live link here to the state commissions, and tell that person that we probably should just like put this in a note or something. Tell that person that you're applying for a national grant with Catholic Charities USA to do legal immigration services, and you want them to know that. They will either say, oh, that's great, and make a note of it, or they will send you a form to fill out. If you get the form, then you have to fill out part of it, and we have to fill out part of it. So that's why we have a sort of a back and forth. December 19th is sort of the deadline for having that initial consultation so that we can get the forms back to you so you can send them back to your state. All right, the application submission, our application submission is January 18th. That's why we need, the time to pull together those 50 or however many applications we get. We're giving ourselves a little time to do that and to celebrate Christmas. So we need you to, especially since we probably will have more than 50 applicants, we need you to really respond in a timely manner. The award won't be till May, probably the end of May. And then the program start will be August 1st. All right, let's see if there's any more questions. I think that's the last, yep. Maybe there would be a way internally to require a 2-year commitment. I think you can ask people, but what are you going to do if they leave? Require? I don't know. People's lives change, especially young people.
Yeah, and one of their Peer Navigator program, there's been quite a few AmeriCorps members who have served for multiple years, and it's been a great option for them. And you can definitely ask an applicant, but this is a job. People are allowed to quit if things happen for whatever extenuating circumstances. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, except it's not a job, but yeah,
it's true. It is a
service opportunity. Please tell me what your drop dead date is for our submission. Okay, so November 19th. It's in the PowerPoint presentation. It's also on the first page of the application kit. November 19th. So it's just like 3 weeks away. But it's not a very complicated application. All right, anybody want the last question? Let's see who raised their hand. All right, so we're here. This is what you need to do. Let me get that back up because I can't get it back up. What we want you to do is, good luck to us all, we want you to ask Fanny Cruz for an application kit, and then she will send you the Excel workbook, the PowerPoint presentation, and the self-assessment study. So write that down because that's the first thing you're going to have to do.
And she too, the invitation and the webinar information came from as well.
Right. And if you have a question other than that and you want to ask me, I don't have my email address anywhere. I'm hiding from you all.
It's on there somewhere.
Is it?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's JBEIL at CatholicCharitiesUSA.org. Okay. Thank you all very much. Hope to hear from you soon. We're really excited about this program and hope we can help you increase your capacity so that you can continue to do all the great work that you're doing. Thanks. Thanks, Sarah, for joining me.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We hope to hear from you soon.
Bye-bye now.